Greetings. Our Frederick Riddle here with another Becoming a Published Author is Fun. And today, oh, by the way, if you don't understand that, episode 8008 will explain that to you. Today we are in episode 2531. And we're visiting, or really what I should say, we're revisiting a subject we have talked about in the past. And that is show versus tell. Now, I want to make one thing clear before I get into this. This is not necessarily that it's going to always be show or always be tell. You can mix them and match them. And as you get involved more and more in your writing, you'll learn how to do that. The point that I try to drive home is it is better to show than to tell in most situations. There are times when you simply can't show it. There's maybe you have no characters in that particular scene or something. So you could have a squirrel, I suppose, do the showing or something like that. But generally speaking, you want to show rather than tell if you have the choice. There are times when the choice favors the tell. So that's why I don't say it's always that way. So let's take a look at it. First, some definitions. Tell. This is where the author tells from his or her viewpoint. For instance, down here, it was cold and snowing. So I could add another word there, outside, if you wanted to. But there's your telling. It was cold and snowing. It's from the author's viewpoint. But when you show, then the characters tell it. So here's an example of a character. It's showing. Let's call his name Mark, for lack of anything else. Mark looked out the window, and all I could see was just white, almost blizzard. Snow coming down, heavy snow falling. And he had to get outside and to do some things. So he grabbed his coat, went and put his boots on, nice heavy snow boots that he had. He pulled his coat on, which had a hood. He pulled the hood over his head, snuggled it up around his neck, put it on, put his gloves on, and then he went outside. And even with all that on, he could still feel the cold that suddenly hit him, hit his face. His breath looked frosty. He could feel the cold into those very bones. Now, that is a description of showing it. Hopefully, I did a good enough job that you got the message. You experienced the whole thing from Mark's point of view. And it's brought it home to you, more so than it was cold and snowing. But you can also, you could have introduced it. So, for instance, the whole show part, you could have introduced it by when it was snowing outside. And when Mark woke up and went out and went to his window and looked out, he saw, and then you go on and tell it from Mark's point of view. So you sort of blend in the two. You can do that. There are other times when Mark's not there. Well, in that case, it's not a case of putting on the coats and everything. There's nobody there. And you're just describing the scene. Now you could describe how the snow is falling down. Maybe it starts out as a light snow, keeps growing heavier and heavier. And maybe it's so cold out that the moisture on the trees freezes and forms almost like diamonds glittering on the tree. I've seen that happen, by the way. So the thing is, you now as an author are telling this. And this is very important to understand. And so I want to spend a little bit of time just discussing this with you. the the process, the thinking that you need to do. When is it right to do this to tell it, and when is it right to show it? And so, as a general rule, I've always stated this actually. As a general rule, if you have the choice, lean to the show. Why? Because then the reader identifies with the character. They may not even like that character. It might be the terrible person, terrible character, but they can feel, they can see what that character is seeing and feeling when that character is telling the story. It could have been perhaps maybe a murderer, and he was waiting for his victim, and he found a place, and he found a place to hide. And as he hid behind a rock so that nobody could see him, it started really getting cold, and he could start feeling it through his bones and his hands. So he had to make sure his gloves were on, and that was going to be a problem because to fire the gun, he was an assassin, and to do his job right was going to mean that he was going to have to take one of his gloves off just so that he got the feel of the weapon. He preferred that. The feel of the weapon, the feel of the trigger against his finger. And so that would make it. Also, he was not going to take his goggles off so he could look through the sight. All these things were contributing to his thought processes as he was thinking about it. And but also he was feeling it, feeling the cold. And in the end, it did play a role because when he went and he pulled his gloves off, his hands were shaking so much he could not get a fair shot. And so eventually he decided you have to wait until a better day. Now, that is a very loose way of showing it I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But the thing is, you as the reader, even though you know this is an assassin trying to kill perhaps your favorite character, and you don't want him to succeed, but you're seeing and feeling how he is doing now. It's up to you whether the reader actually sees his thoughts. You can do that, but you can also read as maybe not as thoughts, but his body language, and as he shifts and he shivers and things of this nature. You're still showing it, and so the thing is that you letting the character carry that story. You're letting the character communicate a situation to the reader, and they can see his hands shaking, or maybe they see the frost coming out, or they can feel the cold on his face and the breath and his lungs aching because of the cold, icy cold air coming in. So even though you don't necessarily read his thoughts, although I would recommend you play with that idea, because when a reader can read his thoughts, then that contributes to the story. You just remember my rule about this. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but if you haven't, here's my rule. If you're going to have multiple characters or where the reader reads their thoughts, keep it down to just one in a scene, possibly two, but not at the same time. They're not communicating with one another, they're thinking. And so you don't want to confuse the reader. So I would keep it down to one person in a scene. But you could do the scene from the assassin's viewpoint. The assassin is the main character in the scene. He sees the hero coming. And so he's getting ready to make that assassination attempt. And so you can process through his thinking. The other way of doing that is the tell. So in the tell, the author is telling it. And you would have to describe what's going on. And you can do that. Again, experiment. What way which way, when you do it, you tell it, or when you show it, which way communicates the best. Most of the time, it's going to be the show, but there are those times when your tell will actually do a better job. Um, one of my books that I wrote a long time ago, I described the mountains, and there were no humans in that part of the story. Well, actually, there was. Come to think of it, there was, because the story I'm thinking about was when Adam was created, and he watched as God created the mountains and things around him. As God created the Garden of Eden around him, but while the Garden of Eden was being prepared and everything, he also could see around. He was lifted up in the air, and he had this vision of distant mountains, and he could see the purples and the colors and things of this nature. That was showing. But in other stories, I've actually just opened it up talking about the mountains. And then I shifted. I do believe in my story about Noah and the ark that I did that. There was the mountains and everything. And at first, I, as the author, was describing it. And then I brought it down to where Noah actually was approaching it, looking at it, seeing it through his eyes. And so the reader was drawn from the broad view, my view, down to Noah's view. And then you can do that. But you need to practice, you need to work on it. It takes some skill. And if you don't get it at first, just because you fail doesn't mean that it won't work for you. Keep trying. And I would even recommend it that you try experiment on different levels, different types of scenes in your story, because there is going to be a time when you're going to say, the tell actually does a better job. That's rare, but it could happen. And so you want to be able to discover that. You want to find out what you are capable of. Not everybody has the same skill level. Not everybody is able to do the show, especially if you're a new writer. It takes practice. It takes learning. It takes experiencing it. That is something you, by the way, even when you're not working on your book, you can practice talking about different things you've seen, just verbalizing, just like I did a little bit ago, off the top of your head. Just experiment with the ideas, write them down, whichever way works best for you. Because the idea is that you can mix them together. And if you learn how to do that effectively, it can be very, I didn't want to use the same word again, very effective, very convincing. And you want the reader to be able to enjoy it. And so you can alternate. Again, you have to be careful. And don't, just because it fails the first time you try it, don't give up. Try it a different way. See if a different way works for it. But a lot of times in mixing, it's in different scenes. One scene might be the tell, and another scene the show, and that works as well. So hopefully this gives you an idea of going forward, of using the show versus tell. It's not always just one or the other. You can mix them, and you can weave in between them. Again, that takes skill. And that's not something that, well, I'm not, you might be born with that kind of skill. I wasn't. It took me practice. It took me time of working and developing it and learning. Some people are gifted in such a way that they can do certain things that others can't. So you might be gifted that you can do this right off the bat. Most people, it will take some practice and redoing it and redoing it and redoing it. But that's one of the joys of actually writing, is being able to learn and seeing your skill level rise. I tell people, it took me 3 years to write my first book. Now I can write 3 or 4 books in 1 year. Is that what I want you as a beginning author to do? No. I want you to focus on the writing skill and learning it. That will come. The more you write, the faster you're going to go, the more your mind's going to work better, more effectively, and you'll get to that point. Don't rush it. On the other hand, my wife, she rewrote one book and wrote 3 other books and was on a 4th book in 1 year. Now, those were the first book was a novel, and I helped her on that. And the other 3 books were devotionals, where they were much smaller. And the 4th one would have been small as well. But the thing was that she was able to do something right from the beginning. Now, she had been working on it perhaps in her mind a whole lot longer. I'm not sure when she actually started. And it was in 2014, she told me she wanted to be a writer. 2021, when her first book came out. So, but she had cancer and other things going on. So she may have played with it and experimented with it. She did a lot of research and everything. So it actually took her longer. But in the process of where she started putting it on the paper and started preparing and getting me involved in it as her editor, that's when I became more aware of it. And that she did that in pretty much 1 year. The first book, that one is the one where a lot of research went through it. But the devotionals, that was something that she would get done with one and then start right on the other. And she did that fast. Why? She didn't have it start out, but because she was used to doing some research, and she had actually watched me do it and learned things from just observing me, that she was able to get into it and get into it fast. So that's what you have to realize. If you're just starting out, don't set your expectations too high. Have them high. Don't drop them down here. Put your expectations higher than what you think you can do. And that will pull you up and pull you up and pull you up. And some people will be faster than others. Don't worry about it. You worry about you, and you trust the Lord on it. If He called you to write, He's going to enable you. He's going to guide you, and you will be amazed at what you are able to do. Show versus tell. It's one of the important features of writing. And you get this nailed down, your books are going to reflect a lot. They're going to reflect positively on you as a writer. Well, that's it for today. You have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and by the way, don't forget, right down below over here, you can subscribe to my channel. And when you do that, you'll get this podcast, and you'll be able to watch these videos and learn. They should come right to your channel that you have. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the next video.